Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the Deal Flow Show. I'm JP Maroney, your host, along with Paul Nicolini, our astute co-host on the show. And today we got another great guest. We have Corey Jackson with us from Quirks, and many other background things that we can't wait to jump into and talk a little bit about, including how you may have to be recruited as part of the Harbor City team to help us take on the capital markets in the 3-on-3 in New York City in the basketball world. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. But Corey Jackson, so glad to have you on the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to do a little bit of background, but I want to set this up by saying I've been watching you on LinkedIn, not in a creepy sort of way, but you and I made contact probably a year and a half or so ago when we were talking about another program podcast I wanted to put together, and I still want to have you on that. But when we were putting together season 1, these episodes of the Deal Flow Show, right around that time, you posted something on LinkedIn about deal making and that deal process, and it resonated, and I was like, man, I got to have you on this show. So we're super excited. If you could just give us a little bit of background about how you got started in business and deal making and everything that you're putting together with partnerships these days.
Yeah. So I own a company called Quirks. We started about a little over 3 years ago. We changed course in the midst of that. But how I actually got to the point of actually starting Quirks and focusing on what we do is early on when I got out of sports, I got injured, and it happens all the time. But my contract was tied up in arbitration, so that means I couldn't get paid. And so I tried to get a job, and I realized that wasn't going to work. And so that kind of led me to say, well, what is my skill sets and how can I leverage them out here, basically on the open market? And I saw a direct link in a market dislocation when it came to athletes and careers. And I dove in head first and started working with companies to fix it.
What is it that you do now with Quirks? Can you describe that for our audience that's not familiar with the company yet?
Yeah. So basically what we do is we take elite athletes, pro athletes. They can be from NBA, NHL. They can be from any elite sport. They can be soccer players in Germany. It doesn't matter for us. But we decode that whole system of what they've learned and skill sets that they've developed over time being an athlete. And then we translate that into corporate terms so that they can get the type of roles and positions in companies that they're looking to have. And so we really show companies the value of taking an individual from one industry and bringing them to a new industry and investing in that relationship so that they can long-term add value to your culture and your company.
Very interesting. So it's across many different sports disciplines, but using a similar model to leverage those assets into the future, as you know, as you experienced. Sometimes a sports career can be cut short, or sometimes it can be long, but at the end, you got to have what's next in that next game plan. Can you give us some examples of some of the types of, whatever you can share, if it's names or not, but the types of deals that y'all are doing and putting together?
Yeah, so we do a couple different things. So we work with Fortune 500 companies and technology companies. And so for us, our business model is what kind of makes us unique. So we don't operate like a typical recruiting firm or executive recruiting firm that you would see. We kind of took a model from sports, and we look at things in like multi-year deals. And so a lot of times, like, recruiting firms do these one-off things, like I got a candidate and I place them with your company. And so what we do is we create opportunities to do it over a period of time. And so we ask for a allotted amount of hires over X amount of time. And what that does is it allows us to forecast what the number is going to be, what we can make, what we can generate, and how we can actually get there the fastest. And so what that does is separates us from everyone else. And now we have actual true partnerships with companies, and we have long-term value versus one-off deals.
You've heard the term necessity is the mother of invention. It sounds like this came about of you going, hey, I got to get some scratch, and how can I best do that? So kudos for putting together an interesting business model. Let's take you back to the world of sports for a little bit. I know you have those conversations all the time, but and can't avoid that. But let's talk a little bit about that. What was your career like? Go back maybe even into school and some of the things that you were doing.
Actually, I want to hear about the one-way ticket that you took from high school to your college.
So I will say that was my first deal, right? My first deal. So I didn't get recruited out of high school. I went to a small high school, didn't get recruited, wasn't a great student at all. Ended up working at Walmart for a year, did that for a year. Decided I wanted to do something different. I knew I was athletic, knew I had talent, and so I wanted to play basketball. And so there was this junior college in Texas. I said, well, I'm going to Texas, I'm gonna play basketball. And so I bought a one-way ticket because that's all I could afford. And I didn't call the coach, I didn't enroll in the school, I didn't apply for the school. I said, I'm just gonna show up. And so I get to the bus station, and then I realized, like, well, I'm at the bus station, but I need a ride to the school. And that's when I called the coach from the payphone, and I just started talking to him. I said, hey, listen, I'm a basketball player. I want to play basketball for you. I'm a power forward. I'm from South Carolina. Started telling him all this stuff. And the guy said, hold up, stop. I have no idea who you are, no clue who you are. Basically, how big are you, right? And so at the time, I was about 6'5", 185 pounds. I said, well, coach, I'm 6'8". And so I knew that there wasn't a college coach in America that would leave a 6'8" basketball player sitting at the bus station, right? And so the guy says, well, if you're not 6'8", I'm leaving you at the bus station. He hangs up. And sure enough, he drove up to the bus station, looked me up and down, said, close enough, put me in the car, and drove me off to school. The cool part of the story was he didn't have any room for me on the team. He had 25 players already. And so he was like, I can't help you, And I went into the gym, and I'm watching these guys play, and I'm like, man, I done made this 2-day bus trip, and I can't even, I can't get on the team, can't get into school. And fortunately, he let me play a pickup game. First play, I dunk on 3 guys. He stops the game, walk onto the court and say, listen, I don't know why you came here, but I'm glad you did. He's like, we want you on this team. And that's how I got into school. That was my first official deal, I guess.
That's like that George Washington burned the boats, right? That one-way ticket. That's a great story. Yeah. You need have you done much in the way? You have a book out, right?
I do have a book out. It's called Think Different, Be Different, Live Different. And I've been the corporate speaker for a while, so I've spoken in technology companies, universities, and all those good things as well.
I'm thinking we need another book called A One-Way Ticket to Success.
Yeah. Corey, speak a little bit more about, then you went back to, you didn't want to play basketball overseas, I think, right? And then you went back to University of Nevada to pursue another career, your master's degree?
Yeah. So I had a semester to finish on my bachelor's degree. And so I didn't get drafted by the NBA, and I didn't want to go to play in Europe. And I had several offers to do so. And so I was just like, well, I'm just going to go back and finish my degree until I figure it out. Well, one of the football coaches walked up to me and said, hey, listen, man, you've been playing the wrong sport. I'm just telling you, you need to come play football. And so he invited me out to come play football, which I didn't play football since junior high. Now I'm in my 20s. I would think I was like 22 years old. Didn't play football since junior high. He invited me out to play. I played a semester where I only played 12 plays, had one pass breakup, 1 block field goal, 1 tackle for loss. So it wasn't no outstanding, pristine career or anything like that. But what happened for me was they had a pro day, and one of my coaches called me, and I'm literally at my apartment. He says, hey, listen, I got 30 NFL scouts up here. They want to see you today. You need to get up to the school. And so I went up there, did a workout for them, walked off the field. The guys didn't say anything to me. Like, I seen all the scouts. They didn't say anything to me. Did the workout, walked off the field, and my phone started ringing. And it was an agent. Said, hey, listen, I heard you did fantastic in your workout today. I want to represent you. And literally that whole day, my phone just was blowing up with just agents calling, and it was just it's a remarkable thing that happened. And so I ended up that year, which was 2003, signing with the Cleveland Browns.
Did you, somewhere along the line, you then negotiated your own contracts?
Yeah. So the funny thing about that, a lot of things happen out of necessity. I got in a situation where all of my coaches got fired. And so my coaches got fired. And typically what happens when your coaches get fired, the new coach is going to bring in the players they like. And not only are they going to bring in players they like, they're going to bring in their system, their defenses, their offenses, the whole nine. Where I was one of the younger players, so they kept me, but they changed the defense from a 4-3 to a 3-4, which I wasn't a 3-4 defensive end. And so essentially I didn't have a position. And so what I had to end up doing was at some point I had to go into the front office and say, hey, listen, I need you to let me out of this contract, right? And, the saying, like pretty much nothing in life is free. And so it cost me about $1 million to get out the contract. And I didn't have a team at the time, nowhere to go. This was like at the end of training camp. So there was really like all teams' rosters was filled up, and I had no idea what team I was going to go to or anything. So it was a pretty ballsy move. But a week later, the Denver Broncos called, and I ended up signing with the Denver Broncos.
Nice. When you look back, obviously you speak, so there's to audiences, and I'm sure you pull from some of the parallels, lessons that you've learned. What do you think are some of the things that you've learned over the years on the court and on the field that have carried over to the deal-making table? Like, whether it's confidence or whatever it might be, that you feel like, man, I'm glad I had those experiences, so they help prepare me.
Yeah, I mean, sports, if you think about it, is really mostly about strategy. You can be a great athlete, but, someone with a great strategy can beat you, right? And so what I look for is advantages. I always look for advantages. And the advantage for me, even in sports, if I'm going against a guy that's bigger and stronger than me, my advantage is, is his feet slow? Right? Can I make him turn one direction and go the other direction? And so it's the same thing when it comes to deals. It's like, are they giving away tells, right? How bad do they want this deal done? Are they in a desperate situation? Or, it's always looking for these tells. And when we in sports, we kind of call that like the just little tells that's going to let you know what the play is going to be, right? And so if I know if I'm going against a tackle and he takes his hand off the ground, he lets me know that it's not going to probably be a running play. It's 90% of the time it's going to be a passing play, right? And so I just look for these little tells, and I think that's one of the big things I learned from sports is how to be strategic and how to see the unseen.
It's real big. When you're doing deals today, what sort of things are you looking for to put together? Are you bringing teams together to make these things happen, or is it very much just a connecting the dots between a player or a present or former athlete and a future opportunity? Or are you organizing an entire team around them?
A little bit of both. It just depends on the athlete. It depends on what they're looking for. We can get anything from an athlete wanting to leverage their endorsement deal and cash out and put it into a business venture, or we can get a guy who has a team already and they're looking for capital for a real estate project that's like a mixed use. And so we get all of these different types of assortment of deals and different types of athletes. Some athletes are very fresh and new at it. Some have been seasoned at it and been doing it for a while. So it just really depends on the athlete, and it depends on what they're looking for and where they are in their specific journey.
How do you prepare? Obviously, in going back to the sports, I mean, you watch tape, you got to go in with a strategy, all those things that you know. How do you prepare to go to the deal table? What's your process?
Yeah, outside of just doing the due diligence and the work that it takes to do it, I'm always surrounding myself with interesting people that are doing deals, right? And I'm always trying to hear and listen to how people look at deals, how they break down deals, how they evaluate deals, because I'm always trying to add value to myself. I'm just one person, right? Like I don't claim to know everything, but I'm always trying to be around knowledgeable people. A show like this, right, will definitely be right up my alley because someone's talking about how they view deals, which is a total different perspective from me that adds a lot of value to me. So I just look for different little opportunities to learn from people. And then I kind of get excited when I see it. I got friends that are doing deals all the time too. So we have these conversations. It's kind of like before the games, we get hype, and so we having these conversations. I have a friend that just closed $7 million on a deal. And, I get excited. I'm like, oh, wow, where's my deal? I got to go get a deal. I got to find a deal, right? And so we kind of keep each other pumped that way.
In our call to you, our pre-call for the show, we asked about your spare time, and you had said that you like to develop additional skills that would help you in today's environment. Could you talk about any of those?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is for me is, and it's directly relates to deals. For me, it's about thinking, right? Like understanding how to think. I think that's one of the amazing skills that people don't focus on a lot, because you see the uniqueness and opportunities. And it's not necessarily about just being innovative and things of that nature, but it's saying, hey, well, I heard this one thing when I was watching the Deal Flow show, and I can plug that into what I'm doing, right? And I think that's a skill when you can actually take something and make it applicable to what you're doing and being aware of those things. And so I'm always working on my awareness and working on how I can take something from another industry and add to my industry and what I'm doing.
What kind of deals are you working on right now? Is there anything that you can share, kind of the thing that's keeping you up and getting you juiced in the mornings?
Yeah, funny thing, I had a deal come through today, very basic deal, but it was athlete, kind of like what I was saying a little earlier, have a big endorsement deal. The payout structure is structured a certain way. You want to access a certain amount of it. And so I have partners that are looking to be in the space of lending, right? They want to lend. And for me, it's being able to leverage my network to help them get that done. And so anytime I can do something like that, that's a fun day for me, because I help someone be able to access some capital and do some of the things they wanted to do. And I also help some of my partners be able to create lending opportunities as well for them. So things
All right,
like that. And then we also do, we help athletes. We do a lot of help on debt side, right? Because, and here's why though, because a lot of times as an athlete, people are always asking you for your money. They're always saying, hey, invest in what we're doing, or hey, can you lend to these things? And so we're very heavy on the debt side for us, helping them access capital, access debt, whether that's mezzanine debt, whether that's bridge loans, all those things that they're working on for their ventures. We're always helping them access capital, even for as investment as well.
I like this. So you're gonna have to hold your question. All right. So you're telling me that you're giving present monetization for future earnings on contracts in this space, like endorsement deals and such?
For sure. When you look at athletes, you have a limited earning potential in a sense, because something can happen to make your deal fall through. But when you have a great idea, you have a great venture, you have something you're working on that can make you money, that's where you really win. That's the upside. And so you can get these advancements on this money for a reasonable interest rate. It makes sense that you take it and turn it into more, pay that back. Now, even if you get injured, even if something happens, you have actually capital that's yours, that you can lay claim to, that you earn outside of sports. And when you start earning outside of sports, that's when you're really moving like you need to be moving.
Well, it's great because we all hear the stories, and I know you're associated with a couple of guys on LinkedIn that I had watched them talk about that work with the Players Association and people like that, where a lot of the athletes, it's the first big money they've ever seen in their life when they sign the ball deal. And then it may be short-lived, or as you said, there's a lot of people nipping at you. I call them umbilical cords. A lot of people walking around looking to plug their umbilical cord into you and suck off that joy that you've just been able to secure with your life and your body. But when those deals are gone, those opportunities are gone, the contract plays out, someone's injured, trade happens, whatever, all of a sudden they look up and a lot of these guys don't have money, don't have resources. And that's exciting that you're creating opportunities for them to create immediate cash and teaching them, it sounds like, how to parlay that into other opportunities, but also to be able to create some future wealth and solidity for their family, something that they can count on long after they're off the field. That's exciting.
Oh, I was just going to say, because they're in a space that's so hot, it's so hot that, if you leverage it right, you never have to worry about finances and you never have to worry about money. But it's about being aware of the opportunities that present themselves and being in control of that as well. So, yeah.
I was going to say they need a guy like Corey too, because isn't the first thing all the athletes hear is, "I've got the greatest thing in the world." You got to hear it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
need the money. You got to hear it. Yeah, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been I know you live in that world, but everything that I've talked to other colleagues that played ball and such, it's, and the money being paid out today is crazy compared to what people were paid, 10, 15, 20 years ago. But still, it's a big problem, obviously, in the industry with guys looking up one day and they don't, I mean, much like entertainment industry, they look up and they don't have anything left. Yeah. So, when you're looking at a deal, what are some of the characteristics that you look at or look for that you go, this is my sweet spot?
Yeah, I think the very first thing that I look at is who's involved in the deal, right? Like, it's always about the people. The people make the deal. So I always start there, and then I look at if there's an athlete involved, I'm looking at what are their needs. If this deal went left, if it went sideways, if it didn't work out, how much risk, how much exposure do they have, right? And so from that regard, that's what I'm looking at. And the structure of the deal, at the end of the day, can we all win on this deal, right? Like, if we all can't win on the deal, then it's probably not a good deal. And so I'm looking at these things, the structure of the deal, who's involved, what's going to happen if the deal goes sideways, and then can we win? Is it significant enough, right? Like, not just can we make money, but is it significant enough for our time to get involved and actually go down? Because we know how deals are. Deals can, take a long time, that look like it's simple, can turn complex. And, so you want to make sure that you're making good use of your time when it comes to doing a deal. So it has to be worth it. It has to be significant enough, for sure.
Corey, you've had an extraordinary path leading up to where you are right now. Certainly, it's not straight up. So how do you deal with the failures or the setbacks? Tell us how that happens for you.
I have a lot of exposure to failure, right? And so, early on in life, I grew up in a small town. We didn't have a lot, single wide mobile home, any given time, 8, 9 people in this space. And so I saw a lot of disappointment at times. I saw a lot of struggle at times. But for me, I think the biggest thing is I get excited, when it comes to having some downs, because it kind of gets me motivated, because I know from experience there's an up that's coming, right? And I think sometimes people hit those downs and they can't think far enough ahead to say, hey, this is just a moment, right? And so we have these moments. Everybody has them. You can't escape them. You try to minimize them as much as possible. But for me, I get excited because it's a challenge and I want to win, right? And so my job is to overcome that challenge and win.
I have a 3-part mission statement, my own personal one. It's make money, make memories, make a difference. That difference is all about legacy. You talked about growing up in a single wide home and coming from a small town, coming from limited or meager means and all of that. Now you've had some success, you're hanging around people that are having some success. What's your game plan for leaving a legacy? Obviously, your company is making a difference in the lives of people through the commercial success, but do you have anything outside of the business or any other things that you're doing to give back or to contribute or to make a difference in those that are looking for a come up?
Yeah, and this is going to be the first time I say this publicly. But I have plans to develop so I went to a school called Ranger College in Texas. And if you go to the school right now today, right, from when I went there back in 98, you go to today, it looks the exact same. looks like projects. And I don't know if you ever seen the projects. It looks like the projects. And all of us that came to that school were people from underprivileged backgrounds, you know, struggled just to get out of their neighborhoods and make it to that point. Not even to get a degree or anything like that. It was an accomplishment just to be there on campus. And this place is literally look like the projects, right? And so, you know, I have a mission now that we're putting things aside for, because I want to redevelop the whole entire campus, like literally the whole campus, because the individuals that went to that school, most of them didn't graduate. Most of them ended up going back to where they came from. But there wasn't a structure in place at the time to deal with or equip people that came from those backgrounds to be successful. They didn't understand them. They didn't understand how they thought, how they operated. They didn't understand why they did what they did. And so I want to put more effort into rebuilding that whole college. And this is a big goal for me because it's personal. It's something that I see happen over and over. And I done had young guys that I've sent to that college and go through those experiences. And it's like, that is close to my heart, you know, changing the lives of people who had the same experience as me. I was very fortunate. You know, I happen to be super athletic, you know, very talented. But on top of that, I was insanely, like just locked in on my work ethic. And so, I mean, even people thought I was crazy at the school because the girls want to hang out and I'll tell them, meet me in the gym, you know, and we'll hang out in the gym. And so I was very fortunate that I had the DNA that I have and the mindset that I have. And I want to be able to give back in that way and help other individuals that's going to go through that experience and equip them for success as well.
I want to talk about that work ethic here in just a moment, but if you're watching or listening to this episode of the Deal Flow Show, you can get access to our archives, previous episodes, as well as subscribe or follow us for future episodes by going to thedealflowshow.com. That's thedealflowshow.com. We have Corey Jackson, former NFL, former power forward in college basketball, and now CEO and deal maker with a company called Quirks. So, Corey, welcome back to the show. I want to talk a little bit about, you said something a moment ago about you had strong work ethic, and I wanted to number one, give a props to you, but also talk about the fact that you were athletic and you did have a lot of genetic things going for you, you know, 6'5" or 6'8" if you if you listen to the phone call you made to the coach. But you know, you had a lot of those things in your favor. But we know plenty of stories of people that have all of those assets and still screw it up because of what's going on between their ears. And so where did you get or develop the drive? Were the things that affected that early on, whether it was a mother, father, aunt, whatever it was it something you saw on TV, something that said, hey, I think it could be different?
Yeah, my dad for sure. So my dad, not educated, grew up in a totally different era. He was the youngest of 10, 11 kids. You know, he was 20 years younger than his older sibling, at least 20 years older than his older sibling. And so he had an experience where, you know, we grew up in South Carolina and they were literally sharecropping, like literally like living on other people's land, farming their land and sharecropping. And so I saw my dad at a very young age. I was maybe 6 years old at the most, work at this cotton mill, 16-hour days, 120-degree temperatures year round. And I saw this guy do it day in, day out. He would come home soaking wet. And one day he put in for a promotion. He wanted this promotion. And they ended up giving it to another guy and then asking him to train the guy. Can you imagine that, right? And so my dad quit, man. He just walked out on the spot. And maybe like a couple weeks later, he convinced this guy that owned this building to give him the building and put a business in the building. And he started from nothing. I mean, literally, he didn't even have enough to even put anything down on the building. Like the guy just liked him. He had a conversation with the guy, told him what he wanted to do, and he convinced the guy to give it to him. Fast forward my dad changed our family dynamic. You know, he didn't become ultra wealthy from starting this business, but it was far cry from where we started, right? And seeing this guy with no education, no money, 5 kids and a wife walk out on a job, it was amazing. It was fascinating to me. And people ask me all the time, so man, how did you get on that bus and buy that one-way ticket? So, well, I seen this guy with 5 kids and a wife walk out of a job, and he couldn't even pay his bills. And then he started something remarkable. And for me, that made it so much easier to get on that bus. I didn't have a kid. I didn't have a wife. You know, it was just me. And that, for me, changed my life.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's amazing. I guess he took the risk, and you saw that, and you saw it was worth doing, right? That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Corey, tell us, how do you market yourself, your company? Give us some tips or pointers to our audience.
Yeah. And so, once again, so I think of everything like a deal. And so I'm always looking to acquire. I think acquisition, right? And so we work with companies to place athletes. We work with athletes to get them funding. And so what I do is I acquire talent. And I structure it in a way that allowed me to get business, right? And so for me, if I bring on, like, for instance, I brought on an individual who doesn't directly work for me, but we incentivize them to partner with us, and they brought on the company that they work for, right? And so I'm always thinking of unique ways to work with individuals that can bring people and companies that we want to work with. And so it's just really thinking about how you help people. And that's my biggest method of marketing. I'm going to come help you, right? I'm going to bring an athlete financing. I'm going to bring them capital. I'm going to bring someone who worked in the recruiting industry, 3 years worth of salary, right? I'm going to show you how to do that, right? Work with us. I'm going to give you 3 years worth of your salary. And so I think of unique ways to bring on talent, which also brings on more business, if that makes sense.
Sure.
What kind of people would you like to connect with from our show for your own deals?
Yeah, anyone that's in the space of obviously real estate investors that are looking to get into real estate deals, because a lot of our athletes are. Anyone in the Fortune 500 or tech space that can use great talent in the form of athletes. That's definitely very important to us. That's part of our core business, placing athletes in those opportunities. And so those are the biggest ones, people who are really in that space of financing and doing deals, but also the hiring and acquisition side of it as well.
Yeah, that's great. That really is. Could you share with us something that the business community otherwise wouldn't know? Share a story, something, life experience that other people wouldn't know about you.
Let's see. I mean, everybody knows about my sports background, obviously. I mean, if you don't, it's pretty easy to find out about. I think the thing that I always I'm talking to young people too. So when I graduated high school, I could barely read, like literally could barely read. And most people wouldn't know that because I developed this skill set of being able to, like, literally sit in a space and just absorb information. And then I can regurgitate it in different ways with different viewpoints. Like I don't know how I was able to do it. And so my teachers had a hard time trying to understand why I was struggling, like when it came to written stuff. But when we having a presentation, I could do it. And so that contributed, I believe, to my ability to operate in business and do deals. And so that disadvantage became an advantage to me, for me. And so I think the biggest thing is I had that struggle, but I guess what I would want people to know is all of your disadvantages have great advantages, and you have to really search and look for them.
You're spot on there. What would be the best way for people to reach out to you? We have obviously other guests that have been on the show that I think we'll be making some introductions with that make a lot of sense. And also, if people watching the show, listening to the show, how would it be best for them to reach out and get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all you professionals, LinkedIn is a great place for me. I love being on LinkedIn, making relationships, and also you can see kind of what I'm doing, and I have activity as content as well. So connect with me on LinkedIn, but also you can go to Qwerkz.com. And if you're interested in what we're doing, there's an opportunity for you to connect with us directly there, either connecting with our recruiters or connecting with some of our individuals on the financing side as well. So Qwerkz.com, LinkedIn is two good places to connect with me.
I just wanted to spell that for those. It's Qwerkz, Qwerkz.
Yep.
If you're watching or listening to this episode of The Deal Flow Show, you can get access to our archives as well as future episodes. Follow us, subscribe at thedealflowshow.com. On behalf of Paul Nicolini, my co-host, myself, JP Maroney, our team here at The Deal Flow Show in Harbor City Capital, Corey Jackson, so glad to have you on the show. Corey Jackson from Quirks. Real quick, before we finish up, you mentioned that you have a book. Is it available on Amazon? What's the best way for people to get access to your knowledge?
Yeah, the book is available on Amazon. It's called Think Different, Live Different, Be Different. And you can get it on Amazon pretty easily.
Excellent. Corey Jackson, thanks so much for being on the show, and maybe we'll have you back again soon. But we really appreciate you being a part of Season 1 of The Deal Flow Show. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Corey.
For more episodes, visit thedealflowshow.com and subscribe.